Welcome, Spartans, to Halo TV Plus, part of Evolved, your home for Halo. I am your host, Oran, and on Halo TV Plus, my guests and I recap Halo's original television show, Halo the Series, and we discuss its contents and unique canon within the Silver Timeline. Joining me again to discuss Episode 2 of Season 2, Sword, is Colin. Welcome back, buddy.
Hey, I'm here to analyze.
To analyze, yes, sir. So this is the analysis episode. In a moment, Colin and I will highlight key scenes and characters from Sword that we believe need further analysis. We will break down the scene's effectiveness on screen, what it means for the overall story, and maybe tie in some core canon knowledge along the way. Earlier in the week, we released our commentary episode for Sword, where we discussed the whole episode while watching it. If you missed it, I recommend listening to that episode first before listening to this analysis, but it's up to you, and we'll take it from there. If you're new to the
we did some really good commentary.
We did do some really good commentary. It was great. It was a good episode. I really liked it.
Yeah.
Halo TV Plus is part of Evolved. It hosts other Halo podcasts like Podcast Evolved, HCS Pro Talk, Mission Debrief, Builds with Blocks, and Halo Book Club. You can learn more about each of the shows on our website, evolvedhalo.com. Evolved hosts another show, I Would Have Been Your Podcast, which is a patron-exclusive podcast from our Patreon. If you're not a patron and want to learn more, you could head over to patreon.com/HaloEvolved. Patrons receive a variety of other rewards, such as early episodes, access to our original 18-song soundtrack, unique swag, access to a private Discord channel, and more. Shout out to all of our current subscribers. I see you guys there in the chat, in the crowd. Thank you guys so much. Woo!
Yeah. Let's go, baby.
Also, if you're listening to this episode in the wee hours of the morning, because this episode will release on Tuesday, February 13th, it is the last, technically, we have a few more hours left until midnight Pacific time, when the Halo Infinite challenges reset, because right now you could earn Riz's helmet and visor if you complete the weekly ultimate challenge in Halo Infinite. So if you still haven't gotten it, you may want to either play while listening to this or just go quickly and grind it out. But at whenever that resets on Tuesday, it's gonna be gone, and then you can only get Vanek's helmet the following week. But yeah, so Colin, we have a few topics to cover today. For our analysis. We were chatting during the commentary, and we felt that we wanted to hold off on some conversations until this episode. But I want to start with Chief and Silver Team. Everyone wants to talk about them. They're the main characters of this show, and we get a lot of sort of like character moments between Chief and Kai and Riz, kind of Riz on her own, and her dealing with some PTSD, and it's you kind of seeing the struggles that are going through the Spartan team. Do you like kind of this dynamic between the characters? Like, they've all removed their pellets, so do you kind of think that this is a stronger sort of like team dynamic that we have this go around?
Yeah, I think they've added personality and depth to the other characters, which is needed, right? And we talked about it a little bit last episode at the tail end, how the first season was such an origin story for Master Chief and very focused on Master Chief, and he's clearly still the main character, but they're spending a lot more time developing the rest of the team. Ackerson, Quan stuff's going on, Soren, so I feel like they're doing a better job of balancing all those other stories, and how they're kind of separate from John, but still related to the larger plot. So that's feeling good to me. And again, I didn't rewatch season 1. Does that feel right to you too? Whereas season 1 was I know there were side stories, but it was still so focused on John. Where here, John is the main character, but he's not like the focus of the entire plot. If that makes sense.
I think the first half of season 1 did. Nice may not be the best word, but like there definitely was a lot of cutting between storylines and highlighting different characters. I think once the second half of the season started picking up, it started getting a little bit more fractured. You had episode 6 that was all Chief, really, dealing with the aftermath of the fight on Eridonis 2 with the artifact, and McKee now entering the picture, and Cortana, does he trust Cortana or not, and Halsey's and her manipulation. Like, that whole episode was like all of those things. And then the next episode, episode 7, was all Quan and a little bit of Soren, and kind of handling all of that. And then episodes 8 or 7, 8, and 9, or no, 8 and 9, those were basically like a two-parter, which again kind of wrapped up Chief. So those last 4 episodes, and really episode 5, I guess, those last 5 episodes, I feel like were a little bit more of a cohesive, narrow storyline. Whereas the first 4 episodes of season 1 was a lot more jumbled. We really jumped around between Quan and Soren and Halsey and Miranda, and then the Spartans, and we even got a little bit of Kai on her own with also John and Cortana. And I feel like the first 2 episodes, and definitely this one, we get the same sort of jumping around. Like, we really focus on these characters for the brief time that we're with them, but then we jump across and we do something else. I made that note while watching this episode, actually, of just like, oh my gosh, like, we still haven't seen Miranda, and Soren wasn't even in this episode, even though he was in the last episode. And it's just because we're spending time with other characters, and we finally get to see Halsey, and we got just a taste of Cortana. And so there are a lot of ground to cover and a lot of characters to interact with, and I think the show is doing its best, and I think it's good right now, just kind of managing who gets screen time when. So then we can then go check in with them. Now, like, if we don't see Miranda next episode, then I have no idea where she is. Because I was.
They led this episode with Halsey, which at the end of the first episode, you're like, well, where the hell's Halsey? And then like, here she is, right? And now we're starting to ask the question, well, wait a minute, Miranda's not around yet, even though it doesn't feel like a glaring hole, but that character has yet to be reintroduced, right? So I'm sure she'll come into the fold. So it feels natural. Like in episode 2, it didn't feel like we needed Soren because we saw his wife and the interaction with the crew and all that sort of stuff.
That's true.
And where Soren left off in the first episode was like, well, he's captured and something's going to happen, but we don't need more Soren right now. We need more of the other story.
Yes. And I think that works really well, because also with Halsey, her character and her physical on-screen presence was absent, but she was talked about numerous times throughout the first episode.
Right.
So her sort of, not her non-physical presence was still being felt on screen, and we got a little bit of that with Soren as well, like you mentioned. So even though we are spending time with some of these other characters and we don't get screen time with others, everyone is still being kind of carried along through these 2 episodes. So it's I think the show's doing a good job with it, and I just hope that the characters just do rewarding things. I wouldn't mind if a whole episode focused on just Chief or just Silver Team, as long as the other characters, like, their storylines are still engaging once we eventually get back to them, because that's ultimately a huge struggle for television writers and even movie writers. It's just like, how do you divide up the screen time, because you only have a finite amount to devote and develop for your characters and for your action and things like that.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't be mad at a full episode of John, obviously, but what would a full episode of Halsey feel like? Like the story, that things would need to be, the threads would need to be left in a place where, okay, it makes sense now that we really want to dig down this rabbit hole for the time being, for this 45 minutes, and then we can get back to the rest of the story afterwards. So, but yeah, I feel like the balance has been strong so far.
Yeah. And I mean, judging from the episode titles of what's to come, we could be in a situation where we get a lot more kind of Silver Team and just general UNSC people and characters, because we have the Visegrad relay coming up next episode, then we have Reach, and then that's the first half of the show, and then the second half we'll kind of see what that sort of unfolds.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point, because as Halo fans, knowing that Reach is a big central storyline and this season is centered around Reach, obviously, we know what's going to happen. but I also feel like they've shifted things enough, or not something that Aaron said, and I think you said it during the last season, was like, I'm actually glad that it's its own timeline, because it's just not a retelling of what we already know is going to happen. And this is, it's a retelling, but it's not going to be word for word or line for line or bullet for bullet. Like they have enough mixed up that we know what's going to happen, but we don't know how it's going to happen. And so they're
Yes.
kind of laying that foundation now. Whereas newcomers, new viewers to Halo is like, okay, like they may think that Reach is gonna, like, they're gonna fight people off Reach, right? And Reach is gonna survive, and they're gonna fight off the Covenant. But we all know, like, nah, that shit's gonna get fucked up. And so we're excited for that. Whereas they're still presenting it in a way that maybe Reach could stand at the end of the day. So, yeah.
And I think it was Aaron that I was talking with all of them about. This was just how they're taking our silver team and they're basically inserting them into all of these other stories and kind of streamlining its own story together and kind of bringing multiple threads together.
Mm-hmm.
Like the next episode with Visegrad, I wouldn't be very surprised if they took a lot of elements from the Fall of Reach game,
right,
or just Halo Reach the game, and it's all Noble Team doing things, but we just have Silver Team doing it. Mm-hmm. And we even chatted, like, in future seasons, like, maybe they just combined Halo 1 and Halo 2 because of, Halo 2, they just go back to a Halo and do more Halo things there to stop the Great Journey and all that kind of stuff. But, like, if they condensed it, then it's like, okay, well, instead of having all of these events, you just have this one event sort of happen. Cobalt Team, or go ahead.
You finish that thought.
I was just going to say, Cobalt Team, they were sent to go check out the Visegrad relay. You made the connection to Black Team, where Black Team went out to go fight the Didact, and they were all slaughtered, and then Blue Team came in to eventually defeat him, compose him, and you don't know what's going on with him until Kelly Gay's new book comes out. But yeah, they're kind of taking these moments and these similarities from across the Halo canon and just inserting the Silver Team or in the Silver timeline, kind of weaving it all together so it fits, but it's kind of like a greatest hits, if you will, which I'm perfectly fine with because the nature of the TV show. Instead of just getting a nugget within the lore, we're kind of getting everything just kind of pieced together and woven together.
Well, and if you think about it, too, at this point in the season, two episodes in, we still haven't had that much overlap with the core canon, if any at all, really. Like, this next episode is kind of gonna, I don't know, it's the wrong phrase, but make or break how that plays out. Because we're going to talk about the Winter Contingency, the video game Halo Reach. That's the first season, and they go off and go check out Visegrad Relay, which is what's going to happen now in episode 3. But that's the beginning of that game. And in the book, if I'm recalling, there is some lead up to that. But I don't feel like that universe, core canon, really what they were discussing and portraying in the book doesn't really overlap at all with what we're doing now. So, like, these first 2 episodes have been kind of a bridge between season 1 and season 2 in the Silver timeline. And now it's Reach time, right? Now we're going to see how they portray the Fall of Reach, because episode 3 is Winter Contingency in Reach the video game.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think this next episode and Reach, the next 2 episodes, episode 3 and 4, will probably be the closest retelling of an actual core canon event. Mm-hmm. Because up until now, they kind of just cherry pick names, locations, things, and kind of just make their own story. Because I'm trying to replay season 1 in my head and even episode 1, and like nothing is really jumping out at me as like, oh yeah, that actually happened as they portrayed it in core canon. So like,
well, a little bit with the kidnapping the kids, but it's more alluded to versus.
Yeah, I guess the overall Spartan story, but like still that wasn't really shown. I mean, we saw
all like a lot of it was like the on-screen stuff was all little, fresh, like stuff that we hadn't really seen or done in the games, right?
But in terms of an actual like mission that they go on and do, like this Visegrad mission is a page from the core canon, as opposed to references or a or a mission. Yeah, exactly. So it's no, from that regard, it's very exciting because that didn't click with me until you mentioned that, and that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how they do that, and you guys will cover it next episode. But do they, if you think back to that mission, things are still mysterious, and they're going to check it out, and you're kind of slowly working up to the relay. You're fighting Covenant along the way, and then you get there, and then there's the girl that you meet, and her dad is the scientist, and he's dead, and then you fire the Visegrad relay back up, right? And there's that standoff at the door of the relay, and then the famous line. I'll let you say it, but what's the famous line?
The Covenant are on reach, and he's like, "Come again," and he goes, "The Covenant." I think he repeats it, and he goes, "It's winter contingency."
Yeah, right.
And
so do they bring that into the fold just for fan service? Like, it doesn't really.
I think I would love it if they did. I would.
That'd be cool.
I would totally raise an eyebrow in glee, just like, yes. I might have to replay that first level, like before watching Visegrad.
That would be cool, right? Could that feel potentially like that mission? And like maybe
it could.
Maybe Cat.
Oh my gosh! Could you imagine there's a MOA? A MOA runs past our team.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That would be great. I would love that.
Right. And who's the not Kai or Riz? Maybe Riz is kind of like the cat, and so she's the one that's driving.
Yeah, Riz can drive. Yeah. Oh man, that'd be so cool. Yeah, and then right. Vanek can be like the George, have a big old gun.
Yeah.
And oh man. Ooh. We'll see. Yeah, and I guess Kai would be June because of the sniper rifle.
Oh yeah, good point.
That's what I would do.
Their helmets are kind of similar too.
So, well, we'll see what happens with our silver team on the next episode. Let's talk about the other side. So we got sort of hints about McKee's return in episode 1, but we straight up see her in season 2 or episode 2, right at the end there. And I thought she was dead from the get-go. And when I heard that Charlie Murphy was coming back and reprising her role, I was kind of surprised from a story standpoint. I mean, I think she's a great actress, so I welcome her back, and listening to her speak Sangheili is always fun and cool. But yeah, we're kind of curious how she's alive. Did she just not die from her wounds, or did the Covenant do any fancy trickery, sorcery, cloning or something to kind of bring her back? I mean, does she even have her powers anymore if she's kind of back? I mean, she discovers the artifact at the end of episode 2, and it seemed to be reacting in some way, shape, or form because it was lit up. But does McKee touch that, and that's what calls the Covenant like in full force, since that's just a like her and that one elite is just kind of the initial infiltration unit.
Right.
So there's a lot of questions.
Because they could be. So I'm putting my Aaron hat on. She touch the artifact at the end of the episode?
I didn't think that she did, but maybe she does.
Okay. I guess we probably should be sure about that.
I guess
but anyway,
I guess yeah. The angle's a little off, so I don't know, but I think an argument could be made that she does touch it.
Yeah, it's already lit up, but maybe because she does, and I guess we should probably be sure, but it could be like an AI or a holographic version of her somehow too.
McKee.
McKee.
Okay.
Maybe they made an AI version of McKee. I think the cloning thing is a possibility. So like her coming back is interesting. It becomes not interesting if they just bring her back to life. I feel like that would suck. Hopefully they've done something. Maybe there's another. Again, maybe there's a clone or an AI or something. Maybe they twisted her character a little bit. That's my hope, because she got shot in the heart, and she should be dead. But
I think what you're getting at is that like there should be some like consequence to her coming back. Something needs to be different. It can't just be oh look, she's back, same as old. Like something needs to have changed or sacrificed or something as a result of her coming back, which I agree with. That's why I think it would be interesting if she's a hologram or a clone or something, then maybe she now loses her ability to interact with the artifacts. And now it's like, well, maybe she still has some sort of connection to it. I mean, they were able to find it in the bottom of Sword Base, which I don't know how you just find that, but I guess maybe they'll explain that.
Well,
but
Blue Team's the only one that saw her dead, right? Like, she was around. The UNSC knew her as this, I don't know, kind of emissary person. So, you know, she maintains the way that she looks and the character that she is. In the eyes of the UNSC, she's still that person. You know, I'm sure there was a debrief about killing her, but you know,
yeah, they're probably. I wouldn't be surprised that they, like, Kai and her debrief said that she shot and killed McKee. So
right,
I would think that would be fair to assume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll see. There's a lot of questions with her showing up and with this mysterious Sang Healy, who seems important. He's likely that leader that John was mentioning that we saw on screen in the first one, because they were together,
Yes.
right? Like, they showed a flash of her silhouette in the first episode.
Yes.
As kind of commanding these Sang Healy.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what we're led to believe. But until we get some proper screen time with her to kind of help flesh out what's going on, we can kind of just only assume. But yeah, that's
and maybe
that's
one more
what we
point.
think.
Maybe she was the leader that John was referring to. Would that make sense?
I think John was referring to an elite leader when talking with Ackerson.
Mm-hmm.
But
he did see her.
But he did see her.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he wants to admit that he saw McKee. Like, he barely wanted to admit it to Kai, but we kind of was in that vulnerable state and then admitted it to her, and that's where she was like, "But I shot her," and he's like, "I know. Like, I was there. Like, I don't know why she's back." Like, that's the kind of subtext I got from that conversation. So, but it is obvious that even with the interaction we saw with McKee and this elite character, she does have some sort of power over him,
mm-hmm.
In terms of orders and things, because she had him open the door and, like, you know, forget about killing the Marine or whatever. And so yeah, we'll just kind of, and you might even assume that maybe it was McKee that told them to not kill Master Chief on Sanctuary.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of just not really answered. So maybe she spared him for some reason. Maybe she still feels that connection from season 1. Maybe not romantically, but just that connection of being a blessed one.
Right.
And that, you know, we shouldn't, you know, kill Master Chief for that reason or something.
Right.
So yeah, I'm interested to learning more about her, and I guess she's another character. Like, yeah, what happened between seasons if she was presumed dead? So
mm-hmm.
there's some flashbacks are due, I think.
Let's talk about Ackerson some more. I feel like, so we can touch on, because you mentioned this with the doubt. They're starting to see doubt. I know Ackerson does that a little bit in the first episode, but like, is Chief crazy? Maybe. And then they have Chief and Kai have the interaction at the beginning of this episode where he's like, "Oh yeah, I saw McKee." She's like, you did?" Because I killed her. So now she's starting to doubt, you know, potentially what Chief's mental state is. And then they have the scene between Ackerson and Kai where he's really drilling into her. It's like, is Chief fucked up? And she's like, no. But he's thinking it. Maybe he is a little fucked up.
Well, she even says that, like, it seems like a lot for him to bear mentally, and she kind of insinuates, but then she kind of pedals backwards a little bit on what she was saying because she doesn't want to admit that she thinks that her commanding officer is in jeopardy or has, you know, illegitimate or pure, like, you know, not able to perform in the field, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Ackerson, I mean, you said it during the commentary, like, he is starting to just plant his seeds of just discrediting the Chief and doubting the Chief and getting his side of the story out there and very much controlling the narrative as best as he can. And
well, he's ambitious, and I think somebody said that maybe it was on like an after show, one of those deep, what do they call it, classifieds. They say Ackerson is ambitious, and he seems like a career-driven guy. We know that he's seen the field, but at some point he decided to, chase the career path behind the desk thing, and he seems really good at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he, if what I'm thinking plays out, like he has, and this is core canon stuff, right? Ackerson developed the Spartan 3 program, so I would imagine in his mind, he's got Halsey locked away. Her program he wants to prove as a failure, and so he can discredit Chief. He's just a guy in a suit. And Ackerson, is going to come save the day with his Spartan 3 program, which is, we didn't kidnap kids and all this other stuff. Like, we did super soldiers, like, the right way. And they're going to come and help save the day.
So my theory is that he is pulling an Emperor Palpatine, and he's building himself a clone army. And I think that's what this whole Flash clone interaction with Halsey is all about.
With
that
what's her name?
Julia. And so I think he's trying to create Flash clones that don't die on their own, and to the point that he could just clone these people, make them Spartans, and then now he has, to his own quote, has just some guy in a suit that can be cannon fodder, because that's what the Spartan 3s were designed to do in core canon, is that they wanted them to be mass produced, trained vigorously and quickly, so then they can be sent on these suicidal missions, because they were important missions, but casualties were just a guarantee. And so,
you know what he could have done? He could have, when he was taken, when Cortana was removed from Chief, that's when they could have gotten the DNA from Chief. And maybe Chief is the clone. Maybe they just cloned Chief a bunch.
They just cloned him a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
That'd be amazing. Or would it be? I don't know if I would like
I don't know.
Actually.
But I don't know.
It's there.
It'd be interesting.
You know.
So yeah, a lot of that's kind of like my big aha moment, I guess, of a theory during this episode. I think it was like during the second time I watched it. I was like, because he said, it's just how he says it. Like, she's like, "What do you want with me?" And he goes, "I want you to meet Julia, your caretaker." And it's like, this, the way he says it is just like, I'm not going to tell you what's going on, but this is what's important right now.
But it's almost like he's kind of killing two birds with one stone. Like he's manipulating and I don't know, kind of mentally torturing Halsey. But meanwhile, he's also testing out his Flash clone capabilities.
Yes.
Through this Julia, and seeing what he can do to perfect that. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I agree. So, and then speaking of Cortana, so she's back, as we knew she would be, and
finally her voice, right? We kind of saw
her voice,
her represented a bit last episode, but now we get her voice.
Yeah, so she's back. I think they have a different mocap actress, so she looks a little bit different.
Well, so the first mocap actress was Jen Taylor, and so that's my big question. So she's different. So are they doing? Does she look different because Cortana does look a little different from game to game? Are they kind of doing a nod to that, or is she looking different now because she only wants to look the way that she did in season 1? For Chief, and as soon as she's reunited with Chief in some capacity, maybe then she'll become Jen Taylor's representation again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It could be either, really. I think changing her appearance between seasons, since it does happen in the games because of graphics and stuff, like, no one's gonna really bat too much of an eye. But it is obvious that Jen Taylor was not the mocap performer.
But I feel like it's really obvious though. Like it's blatantly obvious how different they look. Like they didn't even try to make.
I think the hair and then the shade of blue are like really the only
her outfit,
commonalities.
I feel like, was a little bit more. I don't know. Like she's very much more right now. She's very much more like looking like the weapon, from Infinite. And
true.
And her the way she was portrayed and represented, her holographic form before, like it felt more like AI futuristic-y, now it's very just kind of ho-hum. So I feel like they did that on purpose, but we'll see.
I mean, to have her look a little bit more like the weapon could just be them trying to tie things into Infinite a little bit more directly. I mean, they introduced the grapple shot in the first episode, which obviously wasn't around during Halo Reach, but that it could just be as simple as that. I think Ian and I talked about the toy that Kessler plays with of Master Chief in the beginning of episode. Yeah, do you know which toy line that was? He actually asked that.
That's the recent one. It's probably the Jazzwares, like the 6 or 12-inch characters that have come out recently.
And it's so it's like one of the more recent like Halo Infinite action figures.
It looked like it, yeah.
Yeah. So it could just be them trying to just insert thing again, because they're pulling from everything across the Halo franchise and universe. They can kind of pick and choose and build their own core, their own silver timeline. So I think it's very possible that they could just make her kind of look like the weapon, because will they have the weapon in the TV show? I don't know, but depending upon how far along the Halo story we go, maybe you just keep Cortana the whole time or whatever, and when we fight the Banished or whatever. So,
well, it'll be interesting to see where they take Cortana, because she's obviously advising Ackerson right now, but maybe that will change. I think that will change. So
I think
we'll
definitely
see if she's kind of putting up a front just to appease him, because she knows that she has to for now, and then maybe she somehow switches sides or shows loyalty to John, which was what she showed at the end of towards the end of the season last.
The very brief interaction that we got with Cortana to me felt a little bit more procedural. Just kind of like she kind of seemed to have less of her Cortana personality, and it was a little bit more like, I'm an AI, I'm here to do whatever you ask me to do. And so I think with whatever restrictions that Ackerson has on Cortana to make sure that she more or less stays in line, is taking away some of her kind of personality and limits her. And it's until those restrictions get lifted and she's able to kind of branch out from this restrictive state that she's in, will she be able to be the Cortana that we know her to be, and then eventually reconnect with the Chief, however that happens, and we kind of just go from there.
Yeah, I mean, do we want to talk about Quan a bit? And I mean, I do want to touch on Kessler's helmet. Did you guys talk about his helmet at all? Like how cool?
Not really. Yeah, you want to go ahead and
like
just
it threw
start
me
there.
off right away. It's like, oh, that looks terrible. But then if you think about it, and this is one of the reasons to watch the Declassified series, is they actually purposefully made it kind of not look like Chief. Like it's a kid that made a Master Chief helmet, right? And he's doing that with the things that he has available to him. So they explained how it's a pilot's helmet, and then he cut off the front of a toolbox to make the visor, and then he's got like some ski goggles as the or I guess the top of the visor, and then the face mask visor is like a ski mask. So it's like a homemade version, which is super cool, right? Like that's something that I could see my kids, if they're fascinated with something like that, they make a little homemade version of something that they really love. So I think that's really cool. And then playing with the actual Master Chief toy like shows you the reverence for the Spartan program, or perhaps Chief specifically.
Yeah, I also kind of think Kessler probably has a idea in his mind of what his dad could be, because I'm sure he knows that his dad's a Spartan. And whatever Soren has told his son for the reason of him not being part of the program anymore is, it is whatever it is. But I can see a son looking up to their father and being like, oh, well, this is the Master Chief. My dad can be the Master Chief because he's a Spartan too. And kind of have that, respect and almost reverence for this hero of his that he maybe also sees in his dad.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, but he's also harboring Quan, and I have a lot of questions about, well, not a lot, but some pretty big questions for Quan. What happened to her on Magical before it got glass? What information did she learn? Who this monster is? So do you have any predictions? Because I have two, and I feel like it's one of those two
for the monster. The monster. Okay, so she. Let's see,
I could
Madrigal,
also
and there
pull
was.
up the quote from the end of the last episode if you
Yeah,
want me
yeah.
to.
Pull that up. But I'm just let me talk through it. She was on Madrigal. There was some line. There was some history, like lineage from season one, and then there was a monitor that showed up
Yes.
in season one too. And I forget if how much they were alluding to the flood in season one. So like
Almost none.
yeah, okay. So the monster could be the primordial, perhaps, or the monster could be the grave mind, perhaps. Or the monster could just be, well, I guess the monster could be the arbiter. It could be a lot of monsters.
It could be a lot, yes.
Yeah. So my first thought once I watched it the second time was that maybe it's the primordial.
Yeah. So my initial reaction was just Forerunner because she says the monster is very old. It's older than light, older than this rock, older than your god. And to me, it's like, okay, well, I don't think it's the Covenant. I don't think it's any sort of relevant entity that Quan and them know about. So my first response was, okay, maybe it's just the Forerunners. But then, as I thought about it, I was like, well, maybe she's just talking about a grave mind or the primordial, to where it is the flood, since they too are as old as time, really. And it's their way of introducing this ancient enemy into the fold. So I think it's one of those two. And if not the primordial, then just a grave mind in general. Because also the grave mind looks like a terrifying monster. It's Forerunners, I would say, are less scary, but you could still interpret them as a monster, just like you could like an Elite or really any of the Covenant. So I have a feeling that
really.
Oh yeah, it could. I didn't even think about the Didact, but the Didact would fall under the Forerunner.
But it could be him. He could be the Forerunner monster guy.
Yeah. But what I think, and I might have said this on the last episode, so I apologize if I'm reiterating myself, but I feel like during the gap between season 1 and season 2, Quan found the well that her family was sworn to protect. That was to a portal which was a portal that led somewhere, and this monitor came out of the portal and spoke to her family on how you need to protect Madrigal. Well, Madrigal's been glassed, so she probably interacted with this monitor, maybe went through the portal to get off of Madrigal, and was shown or told or something about this monster, about the Forerunner or the Primordial or a grave mind, and was able to get off of the planet or wherever she went to then find her way to the rubble. But yeah, she kind of has this knowledge, but almost just as importantly, like, okay, well, what that you have this knowledge? Like, what are you trying to tell us? Like, okay, this monster exists. Like, are you supposed to defeat this monster? Are we supposed to bend over for this monster? Like, I'm still trying to figure out like what her angle and what her self-importance is supposed to be in line with
trying to stop
regarding
the monster,
this.
or is she trying to leverage the monster? Maybe that she can use the monster against the Covenant, perhaps.
So I want to know what her big idea is.
Yeah, and the
on
visualization in the cave is it's super muddy. Like I can maybe kind of see a monster face in there, but it's not clear what she's doing.
Yeah, I couldn't look at it. I mean, maybe I could look at some photos from something, but I couldn't discern at all what it just looked like dots in a cave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of all I have to say about Quan. I mean, like I said in the commentary episode, this is like one of the few episodes where I actually cared about her, even a little bit. So that was cool. But I'm still like, okay, I want to know more. Tell me more, please.
Yeah, her portrayal, her storyline's a little more interesting now. Kind of bringing it back.
This time around.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we're hitting about 40 minutes. Is there any other things you wanted to touch on before we wrap out from
Did
the
we
second
talk about
episode?
Miranda at all? Just she's not around.
Just that she's not around. Like
Okay.
I don't know what she or where she could be. Like I assumed that she would just be back at the lab studying the aliens and other
Mm-hmm.
what xenology. But I don't know. Maybe she left the UNSC. Maybe she was disgraced with the Spartan program and how involved Oni and everybody was into it. Maybe she's on her own. She's finding herself somewhere else, or maybe she got reassigned and she's, I don't know. Maybe she's at the Visegrad command center relay and they find her
Oh,
there. I don't know. She could almost be anywhere.
she could be anywhere. I feel like it would be. I would like it if they brought her a little closer to the Miranda from the games, whereas maybe she's doing some training of some sort, and maybe she's learning how to fly a ship, so that she could at least be in a similar position to Miranda Keyes from the games. It would at
Yeah.
least make more sense versus her just being a scientist.
Yeah. No, I would love
But
that. Anything.
her absence isn't like, I feel like when they bring her back, for the viewers that aren't familiar with Halo, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I remember her." And I don't think her absence has been glaring versus
No.
for us being like, "Well, wait a minute, what's Miranda up to?"
Well, it's kind of like Parangosky and Keys, because like when Parangosky showed up in the first episode, I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot about Parangosky.
Yeah.
What's going on with her?
Mm-hmm.
And then in this episode, Parangosky and Keys aren't even in it, and it's like, well, I didn't really notice that they were gone, so I don't really mind that they're gone. And like we mentioned at the top of the show, like there are so many characters and things that they're weaving, like the creators and showrunners and writers need to figure out how they want to tell everyone's story so they get enough screen time and big viewers don't forget too much of one character's storyline while they bring another character's line up to the on screen. So it's just trying to find that balance. And I think once we see Miranda, we'll get to see her more often. But so they might just be delaying what she's doing because it's not quite important yet until she actually comes back. Because I think the same thing with like Perez. Like Perez was in the very beginning of the first episode, and then we didn't really see her a whole lot outside of the teleconference, and then we see her a little bit in the second episode. So I think we kind of are getting drip fed Perez until she becomes a little bit more central to the main storyline.
Yeah, but I feel like where they left her right now, Perez, they could just leave her out of the rest of the story, maybe, or they could pull her in to the larger plot line, perhaps, and maybe she's somehow a key character in the larger story. But I feel like they've used her so far as the perspective of just a Marine and a survivor and a propaganda promotional recruit or Marine, right? So they said, hey, it's not just the Spartans, it's also the Marines that have done cool stuff. And then how she's dealing with that.
Yeah, I think she has as of now, her impact in the overall story is relatively minor, but I think something will happen, probably around the fall of Reach, that will bring her a little bit more front and center to whatever
Maybe her
degree.
and Chief will fall in love.
Maybe. I mean, her relatives around the dinner table seem to think so. He's a good-looking dude.
He's big,
and she's a pretty lady. So
yeah.
Who knows? We'll get more Master Cheeks action.
Oh boy. Oh man. No, I think that's good. I think the other thing I just want to touch on briefly is, and we talked about in the commentary, is showing the training. I thought that was important for the audience.
Yeah.
Showing how many cool things and how powerful and how augmented the Spartans really are, because that's going to start to be featured in the future episodes. Like we need to kind of see that training, and I do feel like while it's still not perfect, the portrayal of the Spartans doing these cool things felt at least a little bit better than in the season one. Kind of the CGI special effects stuff. It felt a little bit more believable than the first season. So I feel like they're doing a better job with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's we're gonna get some cooler Spartan action, and this is just a tease and a showcase of their capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Even just like how fast they run, I feel like that's more clear in this season.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. I think we'll wrap things up. This was a great conversation, Colin. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been
fun. If you're interested, Alex Wakeford releases his Silver Debriefing blogs. Last year for season 1, he would release it every Monday, although he released episode 1 and 2 on Friday after the episodes aired on Thursday. Mm-hmm. So you can check it out for Sword. The blog is a source to recap the story of each episode in detail and to serve as a hub for additional show-related content and maybe, show some other... Oh, I'm reading the wrong one. That's why I'm so freaking confused. I rewrote everything and I'm like, this looks oddly... A little behind-the-scenes action for you guys. But yes, Alex Wakeford releases his Silver Debriefing blog on Halo Waypoint that recaps the story of each episode in detail and serves as a hub for additional show-related content. He also provides some insight into core canon-related tie-ins. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, you can find every episode to all of Evolved's shows on our website, evolvedhalo.com. Also, don't forget to check us out on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Once again, another special shout out to all of our patrons for their continued support for Evolved and making all of our shows possible.
You are awesome.
You are the awesome one, patrons. If you're not a subscriber, you can head over to patreon.com/HaloEvolved to learn more. If you liked this episode and this show, please rate us and leave a review. We greatly appreciate all the feedback we receive from our listeners to improve the quality of our show. Like I mentioned at the top of the show as well, Halo the Series premieres exclusively on Paramount Plus every Thursday at midnight Pacific Time. Episode 3 will be out this coming Thursday, called Vizgrod, as we've said numerous times. And finally, you can leave us an email at podcastevolved@gmail.com or a voicemail on our Google phone number 205-EVOLVED. That's 205-386-5833. And with that, everybody, I've been your host, Oran, and until next time, Evolve.
Evolved.